Hello everybody! It has been a long while since I last updated this podcast, and today we're going to be doing r/pro revenge. And yeah, sorry if I don't follow any of the proper formalities that I usually do. It has been months since I last updated this, so yeah. And another thing, this is actually being recorded live. So yeah, well, you can just listen to all the disasters. So yeah, let's get started. Our first story is from u/Robin Graves. Micromanager forced to step down after mismanaging new retail service. This one might be petty and definitely not as epic as some of the posts I've seen here, and I'm long-winded. Relevant background info first. Anyway, several years ago, I was working at one of the big hardware stores in my area. It's a household name and had some upward mobility with decent pay for the area. I never really found a niche there after my first year and a half. I learned quickly though, so they kinda made me a Swiss Army employee. I could work hardware, plumbing, mix paint, make keys, prepare contracts for installs, and knew all the features and flaws of the appliance models we sold. I was happy to do this because I was building a reputation as someone who could do everything. 2 years in, a new program was implemented that I was ultimately qualified to assist with. They crafted a new position for me. It was marketed as an all-in-one renovation and remodel service for interiors. I was to assist the designer with product selection, product information, contracts, and local marketing for the service. Everyone involved was super excited about it. No, I was still only making $10 an hour in 2015 for this. The problem was that because this was brand new, no one knew how it should work. The designer basically had to figure it out for herself while I tried to catch her up with all the store and product knowledge I had accumulated during my unique experience with the company. Issues with the program. Firstly, it was way too expensive. Secondly, the product had to be used from one of our stores, which was limited. And thirdly, no one even knew about it. It was a rocky step. Coworkers could call me over to talk to customers if they mentioned working with a big product. But that's all we had. No completed jobs to reference to, or anything provided by the corporate to get us running. We made our own stuff. I put together a video advertising the service and got a nod from management to use the company card to purchase TV and media player with video on repeat. We built vignettes in the store to showcase our design ability. I had been taking up a lot from designers, so it ended up being a partnership in effect. The micromanager. Enter Devin, the assistant manager. He had actually been involved in the project from the beginning, and had been pretty supportive and brought good energy at first. But I think he got fed up with issues that we couldn't control. Saw the contract with fixes that were messed up, the design process, customers worked out what they wanted, and people just backing out and taking a bunch of our time when they could see the price. We were on average charging $3K or more for a small bathroom remodel and labor alone. Consulting and design fees were also working to the final cost. The product was discounted to basically being tax-free, but as I mentioned, options were limited to products the company sold. It was just too expensive to make many sales on the poor side of town, where almost everyone knows some kind of contractor or tradesman connections. It wasn't a good market for this program, but we did manage to start hitting or exceeding our numbers. Number 7 in the region for a brand new program was not bad. And just when we finally started getting some business and a rhythm around 8 months in, Devin decided it was not working fast enough for it. Obviously the designer was to blame since he had no authority over the contractors or setting prices. She didn't know what she was doing, and he was going to make some changes. He honestly didn't do much besides hover, bring bad energy, and make terrible suggestions. He didn't understand the scope of what he had to do to get the customer out the door and happy. He forced us to cut corners and get the sale as quickly as possible without concerns for liability, for basically destroying a room in someone's home to remake it, or what was realistic in terms of timelines. Customers felt crushed and got nervous. They backed out. We came to a standstill. We would only have 2 or 3 designs in progress at a time, but suddenly after working our asses off building the program, we had no customers for the first time in 6 months. Obviously, Devin was not subjecting us to his authority hard enough, so he went harder and fired the designer. I lost my patience. Justice, or justice. I'm a chill dude, but I've been working my ass off for this company, making peanuts on the promise I was working towards something. I endured working for the incompetent manager that got the position because they started working there at 18 and made it their life. Toxic alpha male, I will lead, you will follow bullshit was too much. So I started bullying him back, making fun of him in a teasing way, where he couldn't really react without looking bad and losing control. I did that for a while, and he left me alone to run the program and materials since I was the only option. The designer and I had become friends though, so I was still mad about how it went down. I wasn't finished yet, but I didn't know what to do. Eventually, they got another designer, and Devin had me move back to what I had been doing before. Passed over for several promotions that I was more than qualified for. Mark had been flooded with more-time employees that were being moved around. Bad luck, but I was done with the place. One day we were sent an email link to an anonymous manager review survey. The store computers were set up with an always-on and logged-in user profile. They wrote down the link and verified with the coworker that they weren't unique. In every department I visited that day, I wrote a review for Devin. All different ratings, some good, some bad, but I made the good ones so that they sounded bad, but as if I didn't know it was bad. I did that maybe 10 times. It wasn't character assassination or anything, just opinion-based stuff with some vague examples so no one could figure out it was me. I didn't lie either, I just said what people just usually don't say out loud. He could barely look at anyone after that. A couple weeks later, he resigned his position as assistant manager and took an exterior design position at the other end of the store, as far away from the departments he had been under before. Basically the same thing as what we had done with interiors, but he was in the designer's shoes. I left a couple of months later to work tech support for DHS, but while I was still in training for that, my friends from the store told me he'd gotten fired. Maybe he learned something? He should have at least learned how my design friend felt. They were both fired at Christmas. That is it for this story. Our next story is from u/traveling ABC. Former manager made my life hell when I finally got her fired. I was desperate to join a new job after my husband and I were both laid off last year. When I was offered a new role, I knew it would be a step down from what I was doing, but the manager and team sounded great, and that part was not changed. However, since my manager, Gary, was so busy, he basically offloaded me to another manager, Jane. I was supposed to be the connection point between my team and Jane, but it quickly became Jane micromanaging me. She would ask me to work through lunch, move or cancel vacation days, call at 11 p.m. on weekends, and order me around on phone calls. She also made nasty comments about my weight and said I was big for my race. The list of personal slights was so long that it filled 3 pages. I would talk back to her and she did not like that, and that provoked her more. I only stayed because we needed to pay the bills. Finally, I had a mental breakdown on a Friday afternoon after she yelled at me for something trivial about scheduling a meeting without including someone from her team who I didn't know about. I was dealing with a family tragedy and couldn't take it anymore. I told Gary about the situation with Jane. He was sympathetic and not at all surprised considering half her team quit. He immediately offered to move me to a different team under him. I was thrilled. Well, it turns out going to the new team didn't help. Jane continued to order me around from afar. When I ignored her emails, she came to my desk one day and started loudly talking about how I'm not qualified for this role. Gary overheard and finally told her off, but the verbal abuse didn't stop. After 2 months there, I abruptly wrote my resignation letter and stapled the list of Jane's offensive comments and CC'd everyone. Gary offered a bunch of accommodations to try to keep me, but seeing how she was still provoking from afar, he said the only way for me to stay would be to let her go, and he didn't have the authority to do so. Her manager was in a different country, and despite several HR complaints from at least 5 people, nothing was done. So I left, proudly and without shame, telling everyone exactly why I was leaving. Times were bad for about 3 months. There were nights we would eat slices of bread just so we could pay the mortgage and emergency expenses from a health crisis and a funeral. Even after he found a job, we were still catching up on bills, and we still are. I spent months applying to 5-10 roles a day, sometimes over 20. Last month, I saw a public memo about a big shot from a former company joining the company I just left. I used to work with the guy closely and texted him, "Congrats, let me know if you need any insights on the new place." We had a quick call where I told him some ins and outs, where I thought they could innovate. After this call, he asked me to join the team as his chief of staff. I accepted. Imagine Jane's shock when we had our first all-hands call. All the VPs and above were asked to welcome the new Big Shot in a giant conference room. In Big Shot's speech, he breezed over that I'll be his chief of staff, along with a few key names. I now sat 2 levels above Jane, and apparently within the 3 months I was not there, the other half of her team turned over. Every single person had left. Gary was excited for me and said all nice things. However, Jane took the classless route and sent Big Shot an email about how I'm an unqualified idiot, that I used to work for her, how I tried to get her fired, and that she suspects I lied to get ahead. She didn't even try to be fake nice. Big Shot forwarded me her email and asked what this was about. I I was so nervous and excited. Little did Jane know, I was a director at Big Shot's competitor company and was already a level above her. So 2 levels isn't a big leap, and I worked with him for 5 years. I had an hour call with Big Shot, told him she was bad for the company culture and was a nasty person in general. The evidence he needed was Gary confirming that our whole team has turned over my prior resignation letter, which was still sitting on my desktop when I logged in upon return, and a few other nasty emails she sent our recipient staff, which they were happy to share with us. Big Shot fired Gene on Friday. And now, a word from, well, normally this would be an ad spot, but I can't configure ads because of not having enough viewers anymore, for some reason. The past few episodes still have ads, don't know why I can't add it to this episode, but so I'm just gonna take this time instead to shout myself out as the ad. So yeah. So I'm gonna shout myself out. I am MJB20077 on YouTube and 2MJB20077 on Twitch. I stream literally every single day, and I do this thing called MJB Radio at the end of every month, where I do 3 whole remixes, being 2 whatevers, I just feel like, and the third one being guaranteed rhythm heaven. So yeah, feel free to check me out. Okay, moving on to what you're actually here for. Our last story is from u/the Cardio Stormblade. Try to see on my legally rented parking spot, enjoy being unemployed. This happened last night, and I'm now in a good enough spot to actually post this. I'm not quite sure if it qualifies as pro-revenge, but it definitely isn't petty revenge, so I guess I'm posting it here. I'm a professional driver. As such, on the roads in the US, there are different truck stops throughout the country that is a pay-to-park system, usually about 10 to 20% below my profit as reserved, with each space running from $15 to about $25. This particular truck stop is about $17, which is relatively cheap for a guaranteed spot. The spots are reserved for 24 hours, starting at 4 p.m. local time, and extending to 3 p.m. the following afternoon. I knew that I would have a late night delivery, so I came to the truck stop around 3:30 and paid for a reserved spot. I told the manager on duty that I had delivery up the road that night, and I would be back once delivery was completed, but should still be able to clear out the spot by next afternoon or today. She told me that this was okay, and she would mark the spot as sold when I left. That way, if someone else comes in trying to reserve that spot, she can consult her notes and identify the sale. 11:15 p.m. rolls around, I take off for my delivery. I don't get out of that facility until 2:30 a.m. the next morning, so I groggily drive back to the truck stop to reclaim my paid for spot, only to find that all the reserved parking spaces are full. I call the manager on duty, and after giving her my info, inform her that all spots are full, and that someone's parking the spot and hasn't paid for it. She sends her other employee out to start checking trucks. The culprit was from a company that is known for their bright orange trailers, and he was the company driver. The other employee starts banging on his door to inform him he is parked illegally. He has to move. Meanwhile, I can see the commotion from the immediate vantage point in Fuel Island, where I'd been instructed to temporarily park. The driver answers the door with a bottle of Heineken in one hand and some sort of smoking implement in the other. I know what it is, but for the sake of the mods and also not getting this podcast recorded, I am not going to say it. I decided to roll down the window to hear the commotion, and I hear the employee tell the driver to either move or he will get the towing company and police involved. The driver is flat out irate that someone had the audacity to tell him where he can and cannot park, so he slams the door on the employee, threatening him. The employee called the police and towing company, and the police show up first. I've worked for the company before, so I know their policies, and more importantly, what they can and cannot have in their trucks. Alcoholic beverages are not allowed in the cab. Anything that isn't a cigarette or a cigar and a lighter, also not allowed. The coupe de grace, a pew-pew of any kind, absolutely not allowed, and especially not allowed loaded. This driver had all that and some other not-so-legal substances in his cab, so he was hauled away in cuffs. His truck was hauled away on a record. I made a call after the commotion and died down to this company's safety director, and informed them that their rig will be an impound lot, and their driver is going to jail for the not-so-legal stuff he had in his truck. She thanked me and said that he will definitely lose his job, especially over the alcohol and other not-so-legal stuff. I guess he played the screw around and find out card, and it bit him in his career. Well, that marks the end of this episode of MJB's Reddit Time. And, well, I don't really remember if I had any kind of outro, but remember, whenever it's time for Reddit, we'll come back. Or I'll come back. Whenever it's time for Reddit, I'll be back. Have a good one.